And what do I mean by that? At the core of it, you want something that has multiple applications. So it might fail in one application, but it might succeed at some others. It's either that, or it allows multiple applications to sit on you. So it's kind of like it's kind of like the Apple iPhone. It allows multiple apps to sit on top of the iPhone platform. And it's a way to create that portfolio. It's a way to create that high velocity model, for your own entrepreneurial venture. Another piece of piece in the jigsaw puzzle is that don't just think different. If you remember the old Apple advertisement, think different. I think think different is overrated. You have to think different stakeholders. And there are many different parties. There are many different people who are who are involved in the success of your product. And they could be not just your customers, your suppliers. They could be regulators. They could be NGOs, consumer advocacy groups. You have to think very broadly. You have to think about your customers not just as customers, but potentially your distributors. So the customer could actually be a salesperson or an assembler of your product. So you have to think very broadly about the network that you're a part of. Now, speaking of networks, any product we launch in the market today is interconnected with so many other products. You try creating a new piece of software today. It's impossible for you to get a company to use that piece of software unless you can convince them that that piece of software is compatible with the other pieces of software that the company already uses, or it's compatible with the hardware platform on which the software is going to sit, right? So it's not just an idea relating to information technology products. It's got to do with anything. If you have, if you're using, a social media platform, you'll go to the social media site that your friends and family are using. So we are all intensely interconnected. So the way to penetrate this extremely interconnected system is to find the source of power in the network. And you have to align yourself to that source of power. Essentially, you have to be a partner with the source of power. And finally, think about enabling technologies. What is the technology that's going to allow you to do all of these things and leverage it to the maximum? And these days, information technology is turning out to be one of the most universal ones that lean startups and lean entrepreneurs are using quite a bit.
I've got a question on enabling technology. Why not disruptive technology, which allows bigger change?
Yeah, except that I don't quite know what is a disruptive technology. I mean, you might actually be the creator of a disruptive technology. So you might have a disruptive technology, but for you to get that disruptive technology, either created or distributed, you might need the help of others. And information technology has turned out to be perhaps the most significant contributor to your ability to leverage a wider world. Yeah.
Just wanted to share a small input and maybe bounce it off you for your comments. When you talk about think small and be innovative, I've been interacting with some people in and around Delhi. Some of these guys had wonderful ideas, but didn't have the money to put it into gear. The ideas were very good. Products were world class. And when you say AAA, well, it's a world class product at affordable prices. Mm-hmm. That's what the consumer is looking for today. That much of awareness. Now, wherever this guy went across for either angel funding or venture funding or whatever it is, or talk to bigwigs, the threat he had was that somebody else would take over his design.
I'm sorry, somebody else
would just take over his idea.
Yeah.
The issue of patenting.
Yeah.
And getting the rights for it.
Yeah.
This poor fellow actually then fell by the wayside and gave up his thoughts.
Yeah, so I think there's a notion in there which is if you create something that is special, that's compelling, that has a competitive advantage, how do you keep that advantage, and how do you prevent that advantage from being eaten away?
And how do you protect your intellectual property in that?
Protect your advantage, protect your intellectual property, and patents is certainly one of them. Now, the thing is that patents have become it's a double-edged sword.
That's right.
It not only protects innovation, but it also prevents innovation. As we know, Google just bought Motorola, primarily for 17,000 patents that Motorola has got, and it's one way in which Google is going to prevent anybody else from getting into their space. So patents is a tricky thing, but of course patents are extremely important. Protecting intellectual property is extremely important. The other way in which companies have successfully protected their IP is by creating IP that's not just, and this is where the notion of a platform is important, which is think about a whole system. So it's not just one technology or one product that is special about what you do. It's the whole process, it's the whole system around it. And usually systems and processes, the more complex they are, the more difficult it is for somebody to reverse engineer it and copy it.
Yes.
So if your idea is just a single technology, it's easy for somebody to open it up and be able to tell what it is and redo it. So you have to think about that whole process around it. And generally, the ones who are successful platform builders are very good at creating the whole system. And that's why it's very difficult to replicate the iPad. I mean, I saw several of you have an iPad here. I didn't see too many, Samsung or, the Galaxy Tab or whatever. It's very difficult to recreate an entire platform the way Apple does. So,
But I think that's a bigger issue in India, innovation. I mean, because we taught right from the childhood not to think outside the box, right?
Yeah.
So innovation doesn't come in. So most people don't think about patents because they just look at doing something similar to what other people have done.
Yeah.
So they look at exclusivity and they put together a package with exclusiveness, and that's their IP protection.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I just have I should wrap up. Yeah. So I'm just on my the final point that I want to make is that we've talked about the role of products and ideas and technologies and processes and systems and so on. The one thing that we haven't talked about, and perhaps is the most important thing, and this is when you ask Vinod Khosla, you ask any of the great venture capitalists, what do you invest in? And invariably they'll come back and say, I don't invest in the technology, I invest in the people. So here is one of those people that actually initially a lot of people didn't want to invest in. And this gentleman with a very bad haircut, his name is Steve Jobs. And he started with the idea of putting a ding in the universe. And of course, he did manage to do that. His ding became a dent, very big dent, a big hole that he took out of many different industries, particularly the computer industry, the music industry, the telecommunications industry. And the issue is that when that ding maker leaves, you need to have a way to replenish the people side of it. So let's never forget the people aspect. And there is a particular publication called the Whole Earth Catalog that actually used to be the precursor of Google, and it was created by a friend of mine called Stuart Brand. And Stuart and the Whole Earth Catalog is like a Bible for many people. It's a Bible for Steve Jobs as well. And the Whole Earth Catalog, one day, like Steve Jobs, the Whole Earth Catalog decided to call it quits and moved on. And the last version of the Whole Earth Catalog, by the way, the notion of the whole Earth was created by Stuart Brand, who said that he led a campaign to get NASA to publish the first photographs of the Earth taken from space. And his idea was that if we could, as human beings, could see the planet we live in and see how beautiful it is, we'll take more care in protecting it. And after many years, he managed to get NASA to publish these photographs, and then created the Whole Earth Catalog, of course. And the last issue of the Whole Earth Catalog, had this picture of a country road heading off to the next big thing, and just a piece of advice, which is stay hungry. And of course, to stay hungry, you have to constantly remember to be small. If you're big, you're not going to be hungry anymore, as we talked about before. And the other important piece of advice is to stay foolish. And ultimately, it's that what will keep us small and keep us entrepreneurial. Thank you. open to discussion.
On that note, let me give it out. So our next discussion, I'd like to pick your brain on why we can deploy this in education markets in India.
In the education market?
Yeah, I mean, if small can be beautiful and successful, why we cannot leverage that in the vertical? I mean, because we know that now education is making a difference.
Yeah.
Middle class, first time you're seeing people who are in poverty are actually now, coming into middle class. It's because of the education, but it's not happening fast enough, right? So what can we do to leverage that?
Yeah, education is a tricky thing, and a lot of people are doing a number of very creative, coming up with creative solutions to the education problem that we all recognize is a huge one in India. One of the big problems of doing something at a small scale in education is that one, you need standards. So you may have, a parent or a group, teaching, their child or their disciples. But now I need to be able to scale that up. I need to be able to teach many, many children, many, many disciples, and maintain standards, whether it is in arithmetic or science or language or whatever it is, right? So to scale it up, I need scale, I need size, I need to be able to replicate it over many different students, many different regions, many different schools. The second is reputation and brand. One of the important things about education is you acquire knowledge, but then when you get that knowledge, you have to be able to signal it to an employer, or you have to be able to signal it to a postgraduate institution. And if you're a very tiny institution, a very tiny school, it doesn't send a strong enough signal. So you have to be a well-known name for employers to hire you. So that's why education always has this problem of smallness is not a friend of education. And a lot of great organizations have begun to make small inroads, and then they have grown virally from them. Hats off to them. I think they're doing a wonderful job. But it's an uphill battle.
But I think with the technology, we can easily solve that problem. Becoming what's happening with the distance learning, right?
Yeah.
Faculty from US is teaching Indians and Chinese, right? Multiple campuses. So if you look at that.
So that's an example of how people are using technology, basically using technology to the maximum to be able to overcome some of these challenges. That's kind of one approach, and there are several other. If you're familiar with the work that Pratham is doing, very innovative in terms of both scaling up education, but also being able to measure the output of the educational efforts.
I think the key message should be that we need to deliver the highest education, best education at the best price point, right? Because we can't afford, not everyone in India can afford to spend 25 lakhs a year to send their schools to the best, So unless we can tap into the message, look, we need to be as nimble as Walmart in a university. There's no game to be played.
Sure. Yeah.
Any questions from this side? Well, I'm very lighter in. We always, in case of dreaming, we say big dream, not small. No dream too big. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to dream big, but to turn that dream into a reality, you have to start small.
Right.
If you start big, then you won't get to your big dreams.
I think Billa's just raised, why don't education institutes also, think small and things like that. I think it's equally applicable to an educational establishment also. Unless you're a huge conglomerate with a lot of money to throw about and a lot of bandwidth, your brand image and your reputation gets known through your sincerity of purpose. And those of you who've seen Corruption, the movie which was bandied around as a controversial thing, it proves the point. If you are sincere in your purpose, you will succeed.
Yeah, I would disagree with you there. So I think sincerity is a necessary condition but I don't think it's sufficient for success. I think several of you who are entrepreneurs, I'm sure you've experienced this absolute sincerity of the mission that you set about to accomplish, and you probably didn't succeed because of other reasons.
No, sorry, I haven't finished it.
Yeah.
In the absence of sincerity, you'll fall on your butt.
Yeah.
Because the environment will see through you. So I think it's a key element for success. And then comes your faculty or your teaching ability, which actually gives you the finished product. And if I may add, we don't have many establishments that are actually educating people. They are only imparting literacy. They are only reading books. Education is too vast a subject for many of us to even understand.
A message for a city like Chandigarh, okay, what Tam started. What can Tri-City do?
Yeah.
I'm thinking what a typical company in Chandigarh. What is the start? Like when you want to do this,
Yeah.
you that the build that something has to be done.
Yeah.
But when you go back to your desk, you again the whole 70 emails building and the 30 people building this place. So what is the best way? Where it starts, where it starts from? Where even the first you say, this is my plan, this is my program. I want to make sure this happens. What do you start? It's like putting something on a moving vehicle.
Sure. So here, I can't promise that I have the kind of the brilliant answer, because I think there's collective wisdom in the room that we should have for that. But a couple of thoughts, to kind of get the thought process going. One of the greatest advantages of Chandigarh is that it is not Delhi, it is not Mumbai, it's not Chennai, Kolkata, or Bangalore, right? So it's the big company; those are the big companies, right? It's very difficult for them to do things differently there. And Chandigarh has access to some of the greatest ingredients for success, but it's still outside when you call it a tier 2 city, and I think it's a small city, right? Chandigarh was famous for many things before you now thinking about entrepreneurship, and there's been a spirit of entrepreneurship in Chandigarh and in this area for a long time. So now one question is, if your mission is to develop this region as a you could call it a Silicon Valley for whatever it is. Silicon Valley its focus is on information and technology. Now you could say, what can Chandigarh or Bangalore, it's become well known for services and technology. So what is Chandigarh's source of distinctive advantage? What is special about this region? What is the historical association, both in terms of the people, the context, and the strengths that the people from this region bring to the table, right? Are there some historical industries? Obviously, agriculture is kind of a huge part of the history, but are there other elements, right? And then we're beginning to see the growth of, in addition to the great educational institutions that Chandigarh already had, we're beginning to see more educational institutions coming in. Knowledge industries are going to be growing around educational institutions. And as we move into a knowledge-based, certainly are in a knowledge-based society, being proximate, being close to an educational institution is a huge advantage, because then you can get talent who can come out and they can populate your ventures, they can populate your industries. So I think you come back to trying to identify what's the industry that you want to place your bets on in Chandigarh, and let's make sure that the sources of talent around that. Let's make sure that people are being trained in the technologies or some of the enabling skills that you need for that. Let's make sure that you have access to the power nodes in the network. So, is this, for instance, if you were in Bangalore or Mumbai or Gurgaon and you were running an IT center out of there, you had access to fiber optic lines, you had access to information networks. So if Chandigarh is going to, build its industries on a certain or entrepreneurial firms on certain sectors, do you have access to the right distribution points? Do you have access to the right supply chains? You've got to, figure that out. I think another very important factor is the role of the public sector, because the government historically always has and will continue to play a very important role as a facilitator. It can act as a broker to bring different parties to the table. It can act as a facilitator by giving tax breaks, by helping people with providing infrastructure, whether it's housing or transportation, sort of making some of the other aspects of life easier, maybe subsidizing some aspects of education, education both at the postgraduate level and re-educating people at higher and higher order levels. So I think essentially identifying some areas that you can succeed on, making sure that you have access to talent, making sure that you have access to the right entry points into the wider network that allows you to get to a market, and getting the public sector involved in the process and making sure that they give the entrepreneurs and the industry the right underlying infrastructure, so that I don't have that headache that I don't have transportation for my workers, or people can't afford to live here, so no one's going to move here. That kind of thing. I don't know if that's a helpful response.
I think the bigger difference.
On third side is we are having a problem in education system. So I feel there are two areas. Person is one, he is educated. The other area is a person has a certified knowledge. Certified knowledge. Yeah. A college can only provide certified knowledge to the students. One. And the college can only give a platform to the students. But the education has to come from either from that student or from the parents. When we people are sitting out there, there are a lot of people who must be having their kids. If their kids come to his father, he says, "Dad, I want to do a business out of a waste material which is thrown out of my house," we will say, "Shut up, there, what are you thinking of?" That is where we people are